All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the kickoff conversation for week 2 of the AAEEBL 2020 virtual annual meeting. This kickoff conversation will cover topics related to digital ethics. And today we have with us Sarah Zurhellen, Director of the Writing Across the Curriculum program at Appalachian State University, and Amy Cicchino from Auburn University, where she is the Associate Director of University Writing. And so I'm going to hand off the prompt to you ladies and then have you take it away. What does it mean to do the right thing with respect to digital ethics when it comes to any portfolio context?
So our advice is never stop asking questions. We realize digital ethics can feel like an overwhelming topic for ePortfolio practitioners, but regardless of your familiarity with digital ethics, we can all ask questions. This Friday, we'll be sharing a set of principles that can guide ePortfolio practice with regards to digital ethics. We hope that these principles will give you an idea of the questions you should be asking about accessibility, privacy, ownership and author rights, platform operability, data collection and storage, admin support, and ePortfolio instruction. We believe that asking questions undoubtedly leads to growth, because a question creates a need for an answer. And it also offers an opportunity for us to reflect on our current practices and consider what else is possible. So now Sarah and I are going to offer 3 scenarios that show question raising as a practice to support digital ethics.
So I will start. I just wanted to make one quick correction. I'm the Assistant Director of the Writing Across the Curriculum program. I just didn't want to, give myself a pay raise there that I don't have. So I wanted to start with an example of some questions that administrators might raise when ePortfolios come to their campus situations. So whether an ePortfolio initiative in your context is a bottom-up or a top-down situation, the question of support for faculty and students who will be the primary users of the ePortfolio platform is a critical digital ethics concern. Specifically in this context, some questions to consider are where is support coming from and what forms will it take? Will the same people provide support for faculty and students? Is the expectation that faculty will be trained and then they will be expected to support students themselves? Who will be compensated for support and at what rates? Where are ePortfolios being introduced to students? If they're part of a general education program, is the primary impetus for implementation being placed on the most vulnerable members of the university community, such as NTTs and early career students? And if so, what happens to transfer students who miss this early introduction in a general education program? What are the goals of the ePortfolio implementation, and who is best served by the different models of support that are under consideration? And how sustainable are various support models? And how do those levels of sustainability align with anticipated needs? These and many more questions are critical to ask in the kind of planning stages, but they're also questions, I think, like a lot of the questions that we're going to talk about throughout here, that should remain open to constant reevaluation as contexts, needs, and expectations shift. The other example that I was going to talk about briefly is for educators. My position working with Writing Across the Curriculum means that I work with a lot of faculty across disciplines, and many faculty who are considering using or have decided to use ePortfolios are aware that this work will require some knowledge of digital ethics, but finding the time to introduce and teach new material in a content-rich class can be really daunting. I often encounter this struggle also when I'm working with faculty who want to use writing in their classes, but they worry that they don't have the time to teach writing, which they feel like they need to do if they're going to use it. And so I often find that in both of these instances, writing and digital ethics, it's helpful to really foreground the form and function relationship, which naturally highlights the important roles that both writing and digital ethics already play in most disciplines. So some specific questions to consider in this kind of faculty context are, what kinds of digital ethics expectations and conventions already exist within my discipline, and how can those be integrated within the classroom space? Given that ethics is already implicated within my course practices, how can I learn with my students or establish conventions or processes as a class? What kind of work are my students already doing, or what kinds of concepts are my students already learning in the course that are related to the digital ethics conventions of the discipline? And how can or should that work acknowledge and integrate an understanding of these conventions? What do students need to know in order to complete their work in my course ethically and successfully? And how much of that do I need to provide for them ahead of time, or how much of it can we all learn together as a process throughout the course? And then, of course, what resources exist already that I can share with my students so that the process of doing this work isn't also a process of reinventing the wheel every time I teach a new class. These kinds of questions help us to remember that all disciplines have been impacted by the digital revolution, or whatever you want to call it, and they already have standards, conventions, and expectations that should and can be part of a classroom conversation without diverting from the subject focus of the course. They also really enable faculty to find ways to introduce these ideas without overwhelming their own or their students' workload. I'll turn it back over to you, Amy.
Our final example is student-facing. So when students are composing ePortfolios for audiences outside of my disciplinary and professional area, I don't always have answers about how their communities engage with digital ethics. Instead, Sarah suggested we raise questions together so that they can begin to investigate digital ethics within these communities. Specifically, I asked them, who is your audience and what is your purpose for this ePortfolio? What level of privacy is appropriate for the artifacts that you'll share? Should your link be public? Should it be searchable? Should it be password protected? How might diverse audiences react differently to what you are sharing, especially with regards to social and cultural biases? What identity is appropriate for this community, and how will you signal that identity as you select artifacts, design your pages, and create reflective writing? When presenting work that you've completed in internships and employment, what do you need to consider? How does your disciplinary or professional community represent the work done by others? How does it contextualize shared or collaborative work? How will you be representing others, especially vulnerable populations like children, students, and clients? How will you do that ethically? And then finally, is there anyone on campus who is a member of this community and can offer you feedback on your ePortfolio? So all of these questions, and they aren't the only questions, they accomplish an important task. Aside from getting students to think critically about the choices they're making, these questions help them develop a nuanced understanding of digital ethics, one that is shaped by the values held by the communities they wish to enter.
So thank you all for listening to our questions, and hopefully we really hope that they've generated a whole lot more questions for you, and that the next few weeks can be really fruitful in terms of thinking through some ways to start answering these questions and start moving them into further discussions in the future.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to taking up these topics again later in the discussion for week 2, and even later in that week for the play shops and workshops that will happen on the Friday. So we encourage you all to return back a little bit later, and we will see you both synchronously and asynchronously in case you're not able to join us in person. Until then, have a great day.